We heat our home with the wood stove you see directly behind me. We've been doing so for about 6 years now. We have backup heat that could theoretically turn on and heat our home if needed, but we haven't used that in the last few years. We live in a pretty darn cold climate. We get down to the single digits fairly regularly. I enjoy processing firewood for us, but I also don't want to burn any more than I need to. And even though we have pretty poor insulation, we manage to get through the winter pretty comfortably on less than 3 cord of wood per year, generally somewhere closer to around 2. And there's a real key trick to how this all works. Let me explain. For the last 3 years, we've been heating our home in part by making charcoal. And we didn't modify our wood stove in any way. We simply use these stainless steel metal containers that are called hotel pans. You can get them easily, inexpensively. This costs about $25. And so we can heat our home not only with firewood, but also things like dried wood chips, sawdust, old shells from hazelnuts and different types of nuts, and even cloth and various things like that. This system has been very reliable for us. These retorts have lasted 3 years now and counting, over thousands of burns in each of them. It burns very cleanly, quite warm, and we end up with mountains of charcoal. We've probably made many hundreds of pounds of high-quality charcoal so far this winter. I want to be clear that I'm not recommending people try this. I'm simply sharing notes about what we do and what has worked well for us for a number of years now. And this process has been Rose approved, so we know it can't be too bad. And Stanley doesn't mind either. One thing I really appreciate about this approach is that there is truly no modification of the stove needed. This was a stove we bought on Craigslist for $250 a number of years ago. What I did is went to a local kitchen supply store and I found stainless steel hotel pans. It is a hotel pan that is just under 13 inches, 10 inches, 6 inches. Now the example in front of me, this is filled with wood chips, just from a local municipal wood chip pile. We store our wood chips near the wood stove, safely enough away, but near enough to dry them down completely before they get loaded into these containers. They're then loaded into the wood stove with the lid on top. You'll notice that the lid is such that it sits nicely on the container. We don't have to pinch this down. We absolutely do not want to lock this down or seal it in any way whatsoever. We simply rest it on there. And one container like this will provide really good, robust heat for our home for about 2 hours or so on a cold day. At this point, I've learned when the entire process is done. What I don't want to do is ever take it out early because it'll get smoke in the room. But I'll wear a pair of welding gloves and load the finished retort onto a metal tray and put it in our garage to cool down slowly. I don't want to put the metal on ice or snow or pour water on it. That's one good way to kill the retort. Then we can put in the next and continue on heating while making syngas that burns effectively and ultimately beautiful charcoal. So once a container filled with wood chips like this is done, it reduces in size dramatically, but you can see how efficiently and how cleanly it operates. These are all old wood chips that we got completely for free. In fact, you can get cubic yards of wood chips delivered to your home for free most of the time. These are shells from some nuts we were cracking. And we've even tried putting in bones and cloth and other things like that. They all provide heat for a little while, and we end up with this beautiful charcoal. What we do is once the charcoal is completely cooled down in our garage, completely safe to the touch, we'll load it into large feed bags, and once those are full, I'll simply walk on them for a little while to crush it into a finer material, and then either dump it out near our chicken yard, use it as bedding for our chicken, add it to our composting system, or anywhere else where we could find good high value for charcoal. We prefer to take our charcoal and integrate it into our soils, turning it into biochar to help build organic matter and create resiliency in our soils. But there's no reason you can't create charcoal like this and use it for a barbecue, or sell it as artist charcoal, or use it for all sorts of water filtration systems. The end results are limitless. It's a high value product. And the beautiful part is all of that energy, all that warmth gets captured in our home. We really appreciate this process. We've run thousands and thousands of these charcoal sessions over the last many years. The retort system holds up beautifully. The workflow and approach seems to be really reliable and steady. We've saved many, many cords of firewood that I did not have to cut and process and bring in. Feels like we've reduced our emissions overall, and we've sequestered a ton of carbon, quite literally, actually. One very critical note that I would share to myself if I were starting this again is to go easy at first, to not fill a retort to the absolute brim with bone dry, high density carbon material and put it into a raging fire. There's no reason you can't put, or one can't put, a small amount in a retort at first with a small fire around it to just get a feel for it. It is quite possible to overfire your wood stove easily with this system. If you set it up with a completely packed kiln with a high heat fire and leave the stove completely open or unthrottled, it could be a runaway flame. It can also be smoky if you run it too punky or take it out too early. So there are lots of ways that this could go wrong, I suppose, if you're not being observant. So again, I'm not encouraging anyone to do this. Be safe, be thoughtful about it,